Okay, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions going over the Dark Side of the Ring series. This will cover the Ultimate Warrior episode. I'm your host, Mike.
Frank, let's get right to it. I'm going to say this right now. I don't agree with the way they portrayed him during this, especially with Jim Cornette. Cornette wasn't really around him a whole lot, so I'm going to let you start this off because I was actually fuming during this whole thing when they portrayed him as an unathletic, egotistical nut job. Is pretty much what Cornette said, and I didn't agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the documentary that WWE did, the self-destruction of the Ultimate. It wasn't quite that bad,
Yeah, but it
but
was it was getting there.
but the problem was, we'll get into this. You had one side of the story because Warrior
Mhm.
passed. Warrior's not around to defend himself, so you get one side.
Exactly.
So it kind of is what it is. But they started off the episode with his ex-wife, his first wife, who was with him during his first run in the WWE. Because I think they got divorced in '91. I think that's
Yeah,
when they got divorced, right?
Sherry Tyree.
Right. So she started talking about how people thought Warrior was arrogant and difficult to work with, but that they didn't know the other side of him because obviously they weren't privy to that, and that sometimes he was very insecure and about a lot of things and. I guess he kind of did want to be liked, but he didn't really show that.
Yeah, he wanted to do the work in the ring, but according to them, he didn't want to learn the business, I guess. Like he wanted to go out there, he wanted to be famous, he wanted to look great, and and that was pretty much it. And I don't totally agree with that. I think he did his wrestling. I mean, everybody when they start off is going to have a few kinks in the chain. I mean, contrary to popular belief, even Sting had it when they were in the tag team together. So I mean, he's going to have his stuff to work on. But by the time he got to WWE, honestly there was nothing wrong with his ability, and they trashed it, saying that this is a guy, and especially Jim Cornette again. This is a guy that cannot do it. He doesn't. Um, I don't know. He just wasn't a fan of him, and he really berated him in this.
Yeah, no, he did. His wife told a funny story about their first date, and she said, "Oh, can you
Yeah,
pick me up at my job?" He was a bouncer, and she shows up, and then she sees the doors fly open, and then some guy gets thrown out, and then he just casually goes back inside and then throws the trash out, and then he says, "Oh, I guess you saw me take the take the trash out."
gotcha.
That was a pretty funny
That
story. I
was
thought it
funny.
was
He's
funny.
like, I would understand if you want to leave. No, 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 I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. And then she talked about how he knew about his grandfathers, how they died at a very
Yeah,
young age, like in their 50s, I think. And then later on his father ends up dying in his 50s too. Later on in
yeah,
96, I think when his father passed away.
yeah.
So,
It was in '96.
so I guess in his family the men died young. I think they had heart problems or something like that,
Case in point,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, with this, he was 54.
Yeah, yeah. I know Jim Cornette goes over the fact that he was never really a fan of the Warrior. But that he had a great look to him and he had charisma. I mean, he-
Jim Cornette, again, he wasn't around the Ultimate Warrior during the time that the Ultimate Warrior was in these independents in WCCW, in Jerry Jarrett's territory in Memphis. I mean, he wasn't there around him, and he certainly wasn't near around him in WWE. Maybe in 1996, yeah, he was because Cornette was involved in there. But I mean, for him to just say that without even ever having the one-on-one with him, to see him in person. I mean, again, you just take what he says with a grain of salt because, like you said earlier, this is only one side of the story, and we're getting a lot of one sides on the Ultimate Warrior, which is why I refuse to believe any of it, and I won't stand here and I won't
Mm.
bash the man.
well, I mean, you got to understand that if you follow Cornette has a belief of what wrestling should be. Like in his mind, this is how wrestling should be. So anybody Warrior is not the only one that he bashes. He
Oh, I
bash
know.
he
I know.
bashes a lot of people. So he's got his idea. Listen, he's entitled to his own opinion. But I just Cornette annoys me sometimes because he comes off very condescending. Like my
Like
way's
his
the
word is the only word.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
They also said that the Warrior was. I think his ex-wife was the one that said the Warrior was very hard-headed. And they mentioned how Sting was kind of like he would get along, like kind of listen to people and kind of like go with the flow type. Where Warrior, was very stubborn and had his way of
Yeah.
the way he wanted to do things. So there was a big contrast in personalities, and they eventually ended up, going their own separate ways. Then he goes to, where does he go down? He goes down south, right? And he goes to Texas, I believe, and he becomes the Dingo Warrior.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
WCCW,
yeah,
David Manning was the booker there
yeah.
and made him the Dingo Warrior. And I remember them
So
asking her, "What is a Dingo Warrior?" And she's like, "I honestly don't know."
no, but here's the funny part. Dingo Warrior from Queens, New York. Now, there's no dingoes in Queens or New York for that matter.
No,
Dingoes are from, I thought they were from Australia.
Australia, yeah.
Yeah, so why would
I
they
think
say,
it's a wild dog or something.
why would they name him the Dingo Warrior?
I
Right.
don't know. They should have just
Yeah.
named him the Warrior and been done with it. But I guess
Yeah.
I don't know.
So he's down there for a little while, then he ends up, eventually he goes up to WWF.
Man, he slaughtered like
Yeah.
15, 20 opponents while he was there just to get the recognition.
Yeah. So he's basically just running through people.
Yeah, just to establish his character.
Yeah, he had matches with the Brooklyn Brawler and everything. Then they mentioned the promos, and this is what kills me when these guys mention the promos. Like they're burying him. Like it was Bischoff and Jim Ross. Like
Bischoff called,
his
yes, they were
promos,
non-cynical.
they were nonsensical. Didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
He couldn't cut a promo
That's
again.
because you have to listen to them.
No, but not
Right.
only that. Look at it's the target audience, right?
Yes.
You're targeting kids, right? I was a kid at that time. You were a kid at that time, and
Yeah.
I loved it. He was a comic book character come to life. He was talking about the warriors and the stars and the spirits,
Spaceships and
Great.
coming from parts unknown.
It was awesome. He was a comic book character come to life. I never.
I thought he cut great promos when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I honestly I could understand what he was saying.
I did because I felt like I was reading a comic book or watching a cartoon
Exactly.
come to life. So I wasn't like, oh, I don't understand. What is this guy talking about? I never thought that. I was like, oh, he's telling a story. Like this is his.
Because we're listening to guys that are corporate, that are not fully in this business, that don't relate to their fans, and this guy does.
You know what it is though? The thing with Warriors, like I always feel there's this animosity and jealousy towards him because he wasn't a traditional wrestler, right? A traditional worker that came up in the business. He was a guy that had a body and he had a look and he had charisma off the charts. So I felt like those guys were very envious and jealous of him.
They were.
Because he just had natural talent,
He broke the traditional, now I wouldn't say the fourth wall, but he broke the barrier down that where most wrestlers are all pursuing the coming off the same way. He's doing something different. And I just don't think they like that because he didn't fall into place.
Yeah. That's what a lot of it comes
But that's
down
what
to.
we needed back then. We needed that nonconformist. We needed somebody to say, I'm not going to keep doing the same thing that you guys are doing. I want to do something else.
He was an
and it worked for him.
He was an entertainer.
Exactly.
That's what it was. His wife talked about the music, the theme music, how that helped him get over,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how she would be in the crowd, kind of like, I don't know if she was taking notes, but he would ask her for the feedback. Give me your feedback and everything, and then that's when he started. At first, he wasn't really getting over, but then once he started,
it was Barry Horowitz. I mean, come on.
No, well, I mean, he wasn't doing the promos, all that stuff. Him running to the ring, the music, the promos, parts unknown, all of that helped him
after.
Yeah, and all of
So
that.
what they failed to tell you is that match that they showed against Barry Horowitz. Number one, that was a dark match, so that wasn't even televised. It's like the fans just got there and they're all getting their stuff together. I mean, there's certain things they won't tell you that guys like us know because we follow the business to a certain extent.
They were building them up. Nobody gets over in the beginning. Look at anybody's first matches and dark matches. Nobody's really getting over like that.
And it's Barry Horowitz. I mean, it's not like it's Ravishing Rick Rude out here with him.
But you had, again, the people had to get invested into the character, so you had to give
exactly.
But he took off, so it doesn't. At the end of the day,
exactly.
Matter, but, I just don't like how they're putting there's a negative. They couldn't help themselves, but like take cheap shots at the guy.
You noticed that, right?
Yeah.
The whole hour, I that's all I felt. They're bashing him again.
Whenever they would say something positive, they had to counter it with something negative.
Exactly. They always went. Notice when they did that, they always went to a Cornette clip.
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot. That as soon as they said something, they praised them. Here comes Cornette saying something. Yeah. Oh, the man can't cut a promo. He can't work with people. Bobby Heenan hates him. So yada yada. They just kept going on. And it was ridiculous.
It became a little annoying. But they spoke about his ex-wife spoke about him getting his confidence from working out because at first he was scrawny, and the thing with his dad left him when he was 12 years old, so he had a lot of insecurities from that. But the bodybuilding, anxiety, he had a lot of anxiety, and bodybuilding certainly helped him gain a lot of confidence. But it feels like she was saying how in the back of his mind he was still kind of a little kid in a lot of ways, because of how he grew up. you know, but he skyrockets to the top, as we know. He eventually goes into WrestleMania. She said WrestleMania 6 with Hogan, which was a huge thing, and he was getting ready to replace Hogan in Hulkamania, and she said that was, I guess, that was the most nervous she ever saw him, in terms of him having a lot of anxiety going into that match.
Now, instead of being the number 2, he's going to be the number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she says how excited he was when he won the title. He reached the pinnacle, and he was like, you know, nobody believed in him, but he did it. And then she starts getting into the personal stuff about their relationship, how he used to come home before that when he would go on the road, and then like a couple months after he won the title that he changed. She says, Jim left and the Warrior came back. The Warrior came, right?
Yeah.
And, apparently he's having extramarital affairs. I see, this is the problem I have with this. Like, that's airing somebody's dirty laundry. Like,
exactly.
Listen, he's human, and what happened, and then that should be between them. I don't understand why they went that route. That she calls the hotel and he didn't pick up at first. Then she did a wellness check on him.
Yeah, they have the guys check on him. You see if he's all right.
The guy at the hotel says, "Oh, he's okay. He's just sleeping." And then she calls, and then she heard a woman in the background. And then she went through his stuff and saw his planogram or whatever itinerary, and that he had a girl, I guess, for like each town or whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, man, what relevant? I know it's the dark side of the ring, but like, why are they doing that?
What does that have to do with this?
What does that have to do with anything? That's his personal life. Like, I understand dark side kind of blurs the career with the personal, but like, I just felt it was unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. It had nothing to do with the story of himself. I mean, this is just him being human, and whether they choose to do that or not, that's something that's just not supposed to be. No, don't air it.
And then Jake the Snake. Okay, so Jake the Snake, and I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something about this. Okay, so here's the thing. I do actually believe some of what Jake is saying, but context is everything, and I'll explain. You know how they say there's 3 sides to every story. There's my side, there's your side, and then there's the truth.
The truth.
Okay.
Yes.
So he goes on to say how Vince tells him, "Oh, you're gonna feud with the Ultimate Warrior. You're gonna go on some championship run, championship feud or whatever, or that's gonna lead to the championship, whatever, with the Warrior. But like, you have to talk to Warrior first, and you gotta kind of run it by." He's like, "Oh, why do I?" He's upset. He's like, "What are you talking about? I have to run." Now think about it. Let's say it was Hogan, and if Vince would have told him, "Listen, you're gonna have a feud with Hogan, but you have to talk to Hogan first." Do you think his reaction would be like, "Oh, I don't have to talk to Hogan. Who the hell is Hogan?"
I don't think he would. I think he would probably just go ahead and talk to him.
Exactly. So to me, there was already a personal thing because Warrior was at the top. So what's the problem that you got to talk to? This is the main eventer. What's the problem? You got to talk to him. Then he goes on to say he went in there to talk to him, and that Warrior was annoyed and was like, he got in his face and he's like, "Listen, I don't care about you. I only care about myself, and you better not mess this up." And blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing. If you don't know Jake Roberts, if you're just watching this and you don't know wrestling, you don't know the history of Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts was an absolute disaster and a mess and could not be trusted because of his alcohol addiction and his drug problems. Exactly. So do I believe that the Warrior said something like that? Probably. He probably did let him know, like, look.
Especially he told him, if you no show,
right,
if you mess with my money,
right.
He goes on, and he's right, because this is how unstable Jake was. I can't even believe that Vince would even. Why would you put Jake Roberts in the main event status with the Ultimate Warrior? I can understand they started the feud.
Yeah, they did. So we know we know that there's the truth to this, because
to lead to the world title with Hogan, I don't think so.
No, it wasn't. I don't. No, it didn't have. It wasn't Hogan. He was going to.
No. They said that it was going to be a world title run with Warrior, but Warrior wasn't the champion at the time.
No, but
Hogan.
But what I think was eventually Warrior was going to get the title back if he didn't get fired.
Okay.
He eventually would feud with Jake.
But of all the people, Mr. Unstable, and we've talked about why when we did our Uncrowned Champions of the '80s, why he wasn't on there.
Yeah, if anybody self-destructed,
it
was Jake the Snake Roberts, because he had the talent. So when Jake started speaking, I'm like, come on, man. Like anybody, when you hear stories about Jake, they're just as bad as the Warrior. When people trash Jake the way they trash the Warrior too, so it's not like the way Jake was portrayed was like he was like this saint, and the Warrior. I didn't like that. And again, if you don't have the proper context, and not everybody that's watching this show really knows wrestling. I mean, I would assume most people if you're into this show, you know wrestling, but you might not know everything. You know, I mean, we don't even know everything. But the point is, like, when things are not within context, it gets lost, and it's just a narrative that's being you're trying to steer you into this narrative. You know.
Agreed. And again, you're only getting the one side to all of this. You're not getting there's no rebuttal offered because the man is unfortunately resting in peace. So I mean, we got to take this with a grain of salt and just assume that we're hearing the logical side of it. When Jake, comes off with all of that, I'm just like, nah, buddy.
And then the ex-wife talks about how like they still kind of remained friends after they got the divorce papers or whatever, and that he told her what he was gonna do with Vince, with SummerSlam, how he was gonna hold him hostage or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, now look, I mean, trying to look at it objectively, Warrior shouldn't have done what he did because
no, we've discussed that.
Yeah, we've gone over this. But it's tough when you're dealing with a guy like Vince. You know that Vince, he does screw people over too. So it's not like Vince was this.
He's no saint.
He's no saint either.
We've said that.
Yeah. So
but I just love how he tells. No, go ahead.
No, the ex-wife is saying, "Oh, I told him not to do it, and I told him this was a bad idea." And
I mean, is Warrior wrong for saying that he is the top dog in the company, if not with Hulk Hogan, if not above him, and should get the gratuities and everything he so richly deserves? Absolutely.
No.
Was this the right way to go about it? Absolutely not.
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, no. Vince put him in that position anyway, so I don't understand why are you surprised? So.
And of course, like we've said before, Vince was going to go ahead and do anything to get the match on.
Yeah, and
he gave him what he wanted. And when he came through the crowd, the backstage area, he told him, "You're fired." And he looked at Jake and said, "Don't you have the dumbest luck?"
I don't believe that story.
Because now, I don't believe Jake was standing there.
I don't believe Jake. Jake said he was right next to him, and that Vince Vince basically cursed the Warrior out and said, "Get the F out of here," right?
Because Jake wasn't involved in the SummerSlam card up until it came to the match made in heaven
with the Macho Man thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole thing where he, that whole storyline started with he was snubbed from the bachelor party. So that's where that gimmick originated.
Yeah.
So, do I believe he was standing right there? No, because you have the next the segment that's next. You're involved in. You're not going to be at the curtain. You're going to be ready at the reception area in the back. I don't agree that he was.
I mean,
there.
I don't know.
Really
that might have.
Maybe he came to him later.
I just don't believe Jake. I just don't believe him.
That he was going to get the title shot, or title run.
No. I believe he was going to feud with the Warrior. We know that much is obvious because they set up the feud after Undertaker when he set him up. We know that they were going to feud, but I don't believe that he was standing right there and that Vince tells him like, "You're the most unlucky." Again, he's portraying himself as like this saint.
Yeah, he's not.
That he can be trusted, And then this is what annoyed me. So they and it's not Jericho's fault. Jericho's just narrating.
Yeah.
But they completely glossed over the fact that, oh yeah, Warrior was so bad, or he got suspended. Warrior refuses the suspension. And if anybody hasn't seen our Ultimate Warrior videos, I'm gonna put a link in the description box of all three of them, so you can get the full story, so you understand some of the stuff we're talking about if you're curious about it. But they glossed over the fact that Vince brought him back 6-7 months later. He brings him back. They didn't even mention that in this Dark Side episode. They just said, "Oh, over the course of 18 months." No, they went
straight to 1992. That he got fired. They just went right to that. They didn't say he came back. They just said
they said the litigation for 18 months and
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, you guys are forgetting he showed up at WrestleMania 8. He was there for about 6-7 months. He brought him back. He was suspended, never fired.
Right, yeah.
And they totally were oblivious to that even happening.
Yeah, and the whole thing that happened. I mean, I know you only have so much time, but you should. How many seconds does it take? Vince brought him back in 6-7 months. He was there for an additional 6-7 months. It didn't work out. Whatever.
If you're going to do his bio on there, do it right.
Yeah, they gloss over it.
Yeah, right. If you're going to do it, make sure you put everything in there, not just what you believe is relevant. Where's the dark side of the ring that shows Hogan burying 20 or so wrestlers?
All right, so he changed his name to Warrior. They got into that. He changed his name to
because they own the Ultimate Warrior name.
Yeah,
so
which he won, but he won. Then I think they didn't mention that he wins the lawsuit. I don't think they mentioned it, right? He won the lawsuit. Anyway, he won. Yeah, so they were talking about the Destrucity. They're bashing him again, talking about his philosophy of Destrucity. Like, it's not relevant to the story. Like, it's just taking another opportunity to take shots at the guy.
Exactly.
And they're talking about the '96 return with Triple H. at WrestleMania and how he squashed him, but that was just to
That
reestablish
was
his character. That's all.
exactly what was it supposed to go? 15, 20
I
minutes?
guess. I just
This
again,
was to show what kind of
yeah,
the guy he was when he was here last. I
yeah,
haven't changed,
yeah.
and they're saying that he didn't get over with the crowd. That this wasn't
It's
the
not true.
same crowd from 6 years ago. That's garbage.
No.
Because also look at the talent you put him in the ring with, and what did you expect with Jerry Lawler
Yeah.
and Goldust? I mean, it's not like you put him in there with Owen Hart or Vader or Bulldog or someone to actually give
No.
him
No.
the competition. They put him in there with mediocre garbage.
Yeah. And what I didn't like was the fact that then they just gloss over everything. They're like, yeah, and Vince saw that he wasn't drawing, so they got rid of him.
Yeah, right.
That's not like that was the story. They didn't get into the whole legal thing, how Warrior walked out because
Yeah,
Vince,
there was so
violated the
much more to
contract.
that.
Yeah, with the with his copyright infringement and everything. The Vince committed copyright infringement. Like, come on, man. Like, they didn't.
And then the whole story with that he no showed because of his father's death, and Vince didn't want to believe it because he was estranged with his father, and he didn't want to believe it. But believe what you want to believe, dude.
No, but they didn't even get into it. They didn't even get into
no,
it.
they didn't get into any of that.
Yeah.
Just Vince didn't. He couldn't. I'll use a phrase. He couldn't cut the mustard. Out you go.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't think so.
Which is not what happened.
We all know that.
You know, then they spoke about he goes back to Arizona, he builds the gym, he starts his gym and everything, and him and his ex-wife, they were friends at that point, and they ended up, ironically enough, he met his wife at the gym, and I know that story because she told it before, how Dana Warrior, his current wife, how she went in there with her resume or whatever, and that's how he met her, and then his ex-wife ended up meeting her husband there. They didn't really explain. I don't know if he worked out there or he worked there. I don't know the circumstances.
Yeah, they didn't get into it.
But then it was kind of a little sad, man, when they spoke about how they decided that it wasn't a good idea for her to go to the gym because now he's married and she's married or whatever, and they're with other people, but that he apologized for the stuff that happened in their relationship and how much he cared about her and he loved her and everything, and it was like, I was like, damn, man, it's like.
It's almost like he was saying goodbye. Yeah.
No, that's exactly what he was, and I get it. I could understand like your situation. They're both moving on, so they felt like it wasn't appropriate for them to continue any sort of friendship.
Yeah.
So they got into that.
And that was the last time she saw him.
That was the last time. Yeah, that was the last time she saw him. Okay, so then they get into how he became a motivational speaker, and then you have Jim Cornette burying him, saying, "Oh, he was this right wing guy," and blah 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 blah, as if like. And if you know anything about Jim Cornette is very liberal. So they're both on polar opposites of each other, right? Who's to say what's right and who's to say what's wrong? But the way he's telling it was like Cornette is on some moral high ground and Warrior was just a lunatic. I don't understand what the point of that is. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So why even cover that? Other than to talk bad about him, why even get into that? To me, it's not really relevant, like.
The whole bringing up his political stance and whatnot had nothing to do with this whatsoever.
No, it didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially the way that they said it. They could have mentioned like he got into political speaking and then whatever. But to bash him and then for Cornette to be there on his high horse, like he's like this, he's on the moral high ground. Like, give me a break. So then they talk about he spoke bad about all those wrestlers for years. Okay. Like wrestlers didn't talk bad about him all those years. They have a whole DVD of wrestlers bashing him. So how are they going to say?
And the only person they hear him talking about is Hulk Hogan. Is the only one that they showed. And I've said this before. Why don't they go ahead and do an episode on Hulk Hogan burying 25, 30 wrestlers over the years and see what happens? They want to talk about him verbally bashing them. Like you said, there was a whole 3-hour DVD dedicated to torturing his career.
Yeah, I didn't. So I just didn't appreciate them doing that. Then they finally get into the Hall of Fame thing, him coming back, and then Jake the Snake tells the story how he was waiting there with a roll of quarters and he was gonna knock him out, and that he held on to all this anger for all these years because he squashed Warrior's title run. I'm sorry, Jake the Snake's title main event. What?
Yeah.
But here, what's funny? Jake the Snake is just one of those people that can't take responsibility for the things that he's done.
And this is what 2014 when he was inducted. Okay, this is a year off of Jake Roberts just getting himself back on a path that DDP helped him get on. and all of a sudden he's going to stand there. And I've seen the highlights of that Hall of Fame because they were both, I believe, inducted the same year. And I've seen the videos of Jake at the Hall of Fame, and not once does something like this ever pop up. So again, him standing there with a roll of quarters ready to knock the guy out after 13 years of this, after after all the stuff you've gone through, and you've just gotten yourself on the path where your family's talking to you, you're living a healthy life. Yeah, no, you weren't.
But he says that Warrior apologized to him and that.
Yeah, he came up from behind.
I think that something similar to that probably did happen.
But same thing with Hogan. You know, they show you they have a meeting, but they don't tell you what they said to each other. So at that point, I believe it was Warrior making amends for everything he did, and which led into the next night when on Monday Night Raw, when he came out and talked to the fans. And we've talked about this on our episodes of the Warrior on part 3. There was just something about him that night that didn't look right. He was extremely red. He was losing. He was trying to catch his breath. It was almost as if he knew that this was coming, and he made amends he had closure with the company, and then with the fans.
Yeah.
It just I don't know if people can sense when this is going to happen. I honestly don't know. But this really felt like he knew what was coming. Yeah. Because then just 12 hours after doing that segment, he died.
Yeah, the speech is probably kind of eerie, watching it back after what we know.
Exactly.
But I just then they start speaking nice about him. They're like, "Oh, I felt bad." Jim Ross is
well, they don't want to speak ill of the dead.
So why did you just bash him? Why the hell did you just bash him in this? And then at the end, you
spent the first 53 minutes of this episode.
I don't know. Felt it was
ruining the guy, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's a shame.
I felt it was little in poor taste.
Yes.
I felt like
this was just another cheap shot at the Warrior.
I mean, it wasn't quite as bad as the self-destruction.
No, that was bad.
But at the same time, I just felt like I didn't really care for it. I don't know if you watched the A&E documentary on Warrior. I recently saw it.
No, I didn't. I had my fair share of their documentaries on this man.
I mean, that one wasn't bad, but even in that one, which was so to let everybody know, Dana White, on UFC. Dana Warrior. Yeah. Dana Warrior had nothing to do with this.
I was wondering, I was curious why it is that they didn't interview her, and I guess maybe she felt she didn't want to be a part of this, to what they were talking about her husband, which I can understand that.
Maybe because the ex-wife was involved, I have no idea, but
I don't know.
She had, or maybe because she works for WWE. It's probably because she works for WWE. Yeah. So she wasn't a part of this. She bashed it. She said it was smut. What did she use the words? It was smut and something. Was it smut and filth? I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
I read that. I read that comment. Yeah.
But even and I'm not gonna get too into it. I mean, maybe one day we'll review the A&E documentary. But even in the A&E documentary that WWE did, they were saying some bad things about him, and they were neglecting pieces of the story. And I just felt like if you're gonna do an hour on the Warrior, you can't do stuff that's not within the proper context. Because don't even talk about it, because you're not giving the whole story. And the man's not
they're only
here
including what they want you to know from their side of it.
And whatever narrative they're trying to paint, and the man's not here to defend himself. And I have no doubt that a lot of the stuff that his ex-wife was saying, I'm sure some of it, but again, there's multiple sides to the story, and I didn't care for people like Cornette, which he's entertaining. I listen to his podcast, but I just don't. He just comes off as such a bitter, he's got an axe to grind with everybody.
He does. And it's amazing that after 40 years that he's even still in this business, that somebody will actually give him the time of day to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about how much he loves the business, but all he does is talk bad about the business.
Exactly.
So say what you want to say about the Warrior. I mean, I don't think he really even bashed the business. The Warrior was just, he wanted to be an entertainer. He wanted to make money. So what if he didn't have a love for the business like other guys? And they talk about how it was a very short time or whatever. Listen, man,
I can name you 5 guys off the top of my head that didn't fall in love with the business, but wanted to be a huge success and be dominant at it in a short time they can do it. Okay, so he can't stand there and say this is the only guy that didn't love the business and was arrogant and egotistic.
But he made it. He's the one who made it, and so
exactly.
You say what you want to say about him, he still made it. So you can say
if he didn't make it, go ahead and say everything you want. But the man's a legend in WWE.
Yeah, JR says, he never met somebody with less talent or something like that. I forgot what the
really? Is. Yeah, I remember. No, that was spot on. When I heard that, I paused it because I had recorded it, watched it this morning. I looked at it, I was like, oh, really?
Listen,
You, I can name you another five guys that right there.
no, but my whole thing is, okay, so what? He's still a legend and people remember him to this day. So what does it
Hmm.
matter? You say he didn't have talent, obviously he did, because look at all these guys like I mentioned on the Warrior video that we did, Malenko, or even what's the other guy's name? The guy from Canada. What's that guy's name?
Lance Storm.
Lance Storm. Talented guys, but as far as wrestling and ring ability, but nobody
Yes.
remembers them. Nobody cares about them. So,
And if he wasn't as good as you say you were, then why was he inducted into the Hall of Fame?
well, I mean, the whole WWE Hall of Fame is kind of a joke, but but
So,
why would you brought him back?
almost.
But why would you go? Why would you go so desperately trying to bring him back year after year after year? Why would you sign him multiple times,
If you
right?
didn't think he had
If you
something.
didn't think he had something. So anyway, we could be here forever, but that's
Yeah.
our that's our review of Dark Side of the Ring, and we'll be covering more episodes. So you guys let us know what you think about the Warriors' career. This episode of Dark Side. Make sure to watch the other Warrior videos. I'll put a link in the description, as I said earlier. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care, guys.